Welcome, everyone. Today, we are diving into a masterclass on negotiation based on the book Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. Our guide is Chris Voss, a man who spent 24 years in the FBI, eventually serving as their lead international kidnapping negotiator. Voss realized that the traditional rational theories taught at Harvard didn't actually work when lives were on the line. This presentation distills his 24-year career into an actionable playbook for both high-stakes crises and your everyday, low-stakes negotiations. The first thing to accept is that life is negotiation. Whether you are closing a $1 million contract, asking for a raise, or just trying to get your child to go to sleep, you are negotiating. At its heart, negotiation is about information gathering and behavior influencing. We often like to think of ourselves as logical, but we are actually emotional animals, acting first from deeply held, mostly invisible fears, needs, and desires. If you can satisfy these primal urges, you are in the door to getting what you want. Traditional negotiation assumes we are rational actors, but behavioral economics proves we are anything but. Using Daniel Kahneman's research, we see two systems of thought. System 1 is fast, instinctive, and emotional, while System 2 is slow and logical. Crucially, System 1 is the spring that feeds the river. Our emotions actually steer our rational thoughts. Therefore, you cannot guide someone's logic until you first address their unconscious emotional underpinning. Negotiation is not about cracking a math formula. It's about cracking the egg of emotion. This leads us to tactical empathy, which Voss calls the martial art of active listening. It balances emotional intelligence, understanding their perspective, with assertive influence to shape their decisions. Empathy does not mean agreeing with them or feeling their pain. It is simply the tactical ability to recognize and vocalize their perspective. When people feel truly listened to, they become less defensive and more willing to clarify their own thoughts, which eventually brings them to a calm, logical place where deals happen. One of the most potent tools for establishing rapport is mirroring, often called the Jedi mind trick of negotiation. Humans are biologically drawn to what is similar and fear what is different. In a negotiation, a mirror is simply repeating the last 3 critical words of what someone just said. After you mirror, you must pause for at least 4 seconds. Combined with a calm, downward-inflecting late-night FM DJ voice, mirroring forces the counterpart to unconsciously elaborate on their position, revealing their true strategy. We address underlying emotions out loud through labeling by saying things like, "It seems like you value stability." You validate their feelings and disrupt the raw intensity of fear in their brain. Simultaneously, you should perform an accusation audit. This means systematically listing every terrible thing they could say about you before they can say it. Taking the sting out of the worst-case scenario makes your actual request seem reasonable and clears the emotional road for agreement. Most people fetishize yes, but Voss warns that pushing for it often makes people feel cornered and leads to counterfeit agreements. Conversely, no is not a failure. It is protection. Allowing a counterpart to say no gives them an illusion of control and safety, which relaxes their defenses and starts the real negotiation. A great actionable tactic is to intentionally mislabel a desire. For example, "It seems like you want this project to fail," just to trigger a "no, actually" response that reveals the truth. In every negotiation, you are driving toward the sweetest 2 words, "That's right." This signals a subtle epiphany where the counterpart feels completely understood and positively affirmed. You achieve this through a cycle of active listening, labeling, and paraphrasing or summarizing their worldview so accurately, they have no choice but to validate it. Be very careful. If you hear "you're right," you are failing. That is a dismissive phrase people use to make you go away without ever committing to change. You gain the upper hand by giving it away through calibrated questions. These are open-ended queries that start with how or what, avoiding verbs that lead to a simple yes-no. Instead of the aggressive blunder, "This price is too high," you ask, "How am I supposed to do that?" This ingenious tool removes hostility and forces the counterpart to expend their own mental energy on overcoming your constraints. They think they are in charge because they are providing the answers, but you are the one framing the entire conversation. Never split the difference. Compromise is often a bad deal born out of fear or a desire to save face. Instead, use tools like the anchor, preemptively describing how bad a deal might be to anchor their emotions. Establish a ballpark range where your lowest number is actually your target. You can also pivot to non-monetary terms they value, or use odd numbers. For example, $37,263. Non-round numbers imply a thoughtful, permanent calculation rather than a temporary placeholder guess. A deal is worthless without implementation. To guarantee execution, follow the 7-38-55 rule. Only 7% of meaning is in words, 38% is in tone, and 55% is in body language. If nonverbal cues are incongruent with their words, they are likely lying or uncommitted. To uncover these counterfeit yeses, use the rule of 3. Get the counterpart to agree to the same thing 3 times in one conversation using a label, a summary, and a calibrated question about implementation. You must identify your counterpart's archetype to predict their reactions to stress. Accommodators want relationships and find silence awkward. You should focus them on implementation. Assertives want to win and dominate. They see silence as an opportunity to speak, so use mirrors and labels to make them feel respected. Analysts want data and preparation. They use silence to think, so give them space and concrete data. Don't project your own normal on them. Treat them how they need to be treated. When you must haggle, use the Ackerman model. This is a systematized process that uses reciprocity to your advantage. You set a target price, then make your first offer at 65% of that target. You then give raises of decreasing increments, 85%, 95%, and finally 100%. This diminishing size convinces the counterpart they are squeezing every last drop out of you. Your final offer should be a precise, non-round number and include a non-monetary item to signal you have reached your absolute limit. In every deal, there are 3 to 5 black swans, unknown pieces of information that change everything. These leverage multipliers are often hidden in the counterpart's religion or worldview. Leverage can be positive, providing what they want, negative, inflicting loss, or normative, using their own standards against them. To find these, look for unguarded moments at the fringes of meetings. By understanding their worldview, you can spot inconsistencies between their beliefs and actions to advance your position. Finally, remember, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your highest level of preparation. Use a negotiation one-sheet to map the psychological space before you enter the room. Define your goal based on best-case extremes. Write a summary of known facts to trigger a "that's right." Draft labels for an accusation audit and calibrated questions to reveal value and create control. Lastly, identify non-cash offers to pivot away from money. With this preparation, you are ready to negotiate anything.